Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm here with Alex, who's a host here in Phoenix, and let's have you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hey, my name's Alex Stevens. I've been doing Turo stuff for this is year 3 now.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
here in Phoenix.
So how many cars are you at to date?
Today, I think we're 24. So it
24?
ebbs and flows, right? We're getting rid of some cars now and picking up some cars. Like I just sold 2 cars this last week. So I think we're in the mid 20s now, but we were up as high as I think 63 was our peak.
Wow. Wow. So at 63 cars, what were you generating gross revenue wise, roughly?
So Phoenix is very cyclical, right?
Yeah.
Like March is the biggest month in the spring, and November, December is the biggest time period in the fall. So I think our best month was March, and again, it wasn't 63 cars in March. It was probably, I think we had maybe 48 cars in March.
Okay.
And I think we did something over 70 grand gross, well, like net of Turo fees.
Yeah.
In March.
Wow. Wow. That's great. So tell me about, how did you get started in Turo 3 years ago?
It was COVID, really. COVID was the thing that got me into Turo. So I had a little race car business. You put people in the driver's seat, you drive around with them in the right seat on a racetrack, and you let them go as fast as they feel comfortable in some cool cars, some Porsches, like a Hellcat Charger Challenger, like some fun stuff.
So you
right?
own the cars and then you drove them
We
around
own the
on
cars.
track?
We would rent the racetrack. I mean, that's what
Okay.
you do. People don't own racetracks.
Yeah.
You rent the racetrack if you're going to use it. And then COVID hit after about 6 or 7 months of me being in that business.
Wow. So you're
and
just getting
so
started.
we parked all the cars, right? And you can't generate revenue unless the cars are rolling. So we parked them for a little bit. I kind of pivoted in some other stuff. And then right about the very beginning of 2021, people started traveling again, right? It wasn't the zombie apocalypse. It wasn't the end of the world. And we thought we could start traveling again. So this is the time, this was kind of like the perfect storm. Remember when COVID hit, all of the big rental car companies had to liquidate all of their assets to stay in business, right? And then when we started traveling again, the rental car companies wanted to start bringing cars back on.
They couldn't buy them fast
Microchip
enough.
shortage, right? So there aren't any to be had. And the dealerships would much rather sell to a retail customer over a big wholesale company like Hertz or Avis or any of the big name.
Yeah, well, same with
ones.
the manufacturers. They make way more money with the retail.
Exactly, they're going to make more money if they're selling to retail, and those guys can't keep cars on the lots. So why sell to the rental car companies if you can make more money selling to the retailers? So that's when I was like, well, why don't I heard about this Turo thing. I rented the R8 that I have. I rented that on Turo first before I bought it.
That actual car?
Yeah.
And you bought the car that you
I bought
rented?
that car, yeah. So I rented the
crazy.
R8, and I liked it enough, and I'd already had some other cars on Turo at the time. The R8 wasn't my first car.
Okay, what car was it? Like 5,
My
10?
first, which car was the R8?
Yeah.
R8
yeah.
was number 5.
Wow, that's early on.
R8 was number 5.
That's
yeah.
crazy.
So January the 3rd of 2021, I bought my first car. So I have all of January. Like I have an entire year.
Wow.
So I started at the very beginning of the year. My first car was a Volkswagen Tiguan.
Wow.
So I've bought private party, I've bought from dealerships, I've bought at auction, I've bought any number of ways. So I bought this first car I bought from a dealership just kind of as a test case. Put it out auto pricing, which I don't recommend. And 1-day minimums, which I don't recommend, because I didn't know, right? I didn't know the nuance yet, and it takes some stumbling of your own and like looking at other resources to see what the way is, like what the best way is.
Yeah, it takes time to learn.
So it did well the first month, and then month 2, I bought 2 more cars. I bought I bought 1 more car the next month. I bought the SLK, the Mercedes SLK, little roadster, little hardtop convertible, great little car.
Yeah.
That did great because this is the beginning of the year now. Remember, this is like January, February in Phoenix. That's starting the really heavy season. So I was getting great utilization, great rates. That next month, I bought the Mercedes SL and the Boxster. Again, convertibles, right? 2-door, 2-seat convertibles.
So you really started in luxury.
Yeah, but not brand new stuff, right? It wasn't like a 2021. It was like a 2012 or a 2011. Like I went a couple years older.
Okay.
because it's all a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that enough depreciation has been captured on the car before I take the car, so that I'm not getting hit with all of that depreciation when it comes time for me to sell the car.
Makes sense.
So I looked at where the sweet spot was on the depreciation curve and on the future value curve of these vehicles, and that's where that's where I found it. Actually, the second car that I bought, the Mercedes, the white SLK, I was getting a key made for the Tiguan at a locksmith. He worked out of his house. And I saw a car cover in his garage, and like a headlight was peeking out. And I go, "Oh, is that an SL or an SLK?" He goes, "Well, it's an SL, or it's an SLK." I said, "Oh, cool, you want to sell it?" He's like, "Actually, I was thinking about it." And it's a 2015 or 2016, and this was in 2021, so like 6-7 years old already. Had 7,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Now, great driver's car.
7,000 miles.
But what's going to happen when you put it on Turo, right? The miles are going to go way up because people drive Turo cars. People drive rental cars. They don't park them and let them look good.
Yeah.
So I spent a little bit of extra money because it had low miles, right? It just happened to fall into my lap. So it was like, oh, I got to have this car, and that was how I got the second car. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So year one, you got a full year in the beginning. What was your first year as far as revenue?
I think all of 2021, I think with all the like stumbles of auto pricing one day, like all of the things that you learn, I think I hit 50,000 the first year.
Okay. And how many cars did you end with at the end of the year?
Maybe 8.
8? Okay.
Maybe 8.
Nice.
Yeah, and with that in 2021, I also took on a good friend of mine who became one of my junior partners. He had a Mustang. Mm-hmm. He had a Ford Mustang, and he was a car guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I want to get rid of it, and I want to get a Porsche." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." He's like, "Yeah, but I'm upside down on the Mustang." I said, "Well, why don't you let me manage the car for a little while on Turo? We're in the heavy season, I think at that time I maybe offered him like a flat rate, no matter what, I'll just pay you X a month for the use of the car. And it did well enough for him that what I was paying him for the Mustang allowed him to get the Porsche. Wow. Yeah, so he got a Cayman. A couple years old, great little car. 2 months later, he goes, how do you think a Cayman would do on Turo? And I said, it'd do pretty well. So now I got the Cayman. Then he bought another car. And so at one point, I think I had 4 of his cars, wow. a guy I knew who eventually became one of my junior partners. And so I had, in 2021, towards the end of 2021, I had 1 management car, 1 co-host car, and then, within the next 6 months, I had 4 of his cars. Okay, is that what you call people that you co-host junior partners? No, so he actually came into the business as it's a little bit complicated, but he came on as a partner. Okay. As a junior partner. So at the time I had like a 50-50 partner, and then we brought on a junior partner, which he was able to get an equity stake in a smaller portion of the cars. Wow. Yeah. And what did he do that allowed him to get a percentage of equity? So we found the money. Yeah. We found the loans, or we found the financing in other ways. So he didn't have to come to the table with any money. He didn't have to come to the table with any cars, but he just had to. Part of the deal was he gave us a certain number of days, and in exchange for, say, I'm just going to throw a round number out there. Let's say $100,000. I've got a pot of $100,000. For the $100,000, you have to come in 1 day a week. Let's call it Friday. You come in. Friday is your day. Anything that happens on Friday, any cars that have to go out, any cars that have to come back, any maintenance that needs to be done that just happens to happen on a Friday, Friday is your day. And in exchange for that, he would get a percentage of the equity of whatever that $100,000, in this example, bought. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So is that how you paid him? So he didn't. It was an equity stake, not he wasn't an employee.
Yeah,
So,
so he
there
didn't
was
get
no
paid.
pay. So he did this.
Interesting.
He did this. I mean, we've known each other for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Knowing that as he vests over time, say we keep the cars 3 years or 2-3 years, whatever it is, or say we pay off the loan or whatever money we had to get in 2-3 years, anything after that, like there's a vesting period. When it came time to sell or rotate out of the cars, or once the loans get paid off, now there's revenue that splits whatever the percentage is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
So we never had and don't really want employees because I want someone who cares.
Yeah.
Like who's vested in making sure a good product goes out the door. If I'm paying someone minimum wage, maybe even a little bit more than minimum wage, no one's going to care as much as an owner does about how the cars come and go.
Yeah. Do you think that idea of junior partner is possible with scale?
That's the intent. That was kind of our intent is.
Interesting.
Say, I'm just going to throw numbers out there. These aren't the actual numbers. So $100,000 gets you 1 day. Well, I can find another $100,000. I get someone else to come in for another day. Find another $100,000. Now instead of them coming in for a day, maybe that person's really savvy in accounting software. And for their $100,000, now I've got accounting in-house. Not necessarily accounting, not like a CPA, but I've got bookkeeping in-house now.
Yeah.
Or, for another $100,000, now I've got someone who deals with all the communications.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I can build.
That makes sense.
I can find the money, and I can source the cars. And we can have as long as we get enough people to run the cars, one person every day of the week, and then maybe 2 people on the busy days or whatever.
Yeah.
That allows me to do more quarterbacking, more like strategic stuff.
Okay.
Do I want to go to another market? Those things. But yeah, it absolutely does scale.
Okay. So let me think about this. So you got debt for the vehicles, and then you purchased the vehicles, and then their pay or their whatever was the debt in the cars and then being paid down?
Correct. Yeah. So let's just say
Wow.
this $100,000. The $100,000, say it's a 3-year, say we take out a 3-year loan, say payments, I'm just going to throw a number out. Say payments $3,000 a month for this $100,000.
Yeah.
I don't know, something like that.
And so they got that full amount.
So their little amount of cars that $100,000 buys must first pay its own bills. It's got to pay the loan payments. It's got to pay the insurance payments. It's got to pay storage, parking. It's got to pay for. It's got to be self-sustaining.
Yeah.
And then once those loans get paid off, or if there's any extra after the loans are paid off, then as an equity partner in that amount of cars, they get to be a part of the decision making what we do with it.
Okay. Okay.
Say the loan payment's $3,000 a month and the cars make $4,000 a month. Well, we've got an extra $1,000 a month. What do you want? We ask that partner, what do you want to do with that $1,000? Do you want to pay the debt down? Do you want to pocket it? Or do you want to maybe hold on to it and then in a couple of months, maybe 4 or 5 months, roll it into another car?
Okay.
Now your initial, say $100,000, again, I'm just throwing random, like round numbers out there. Now you get another car. So instead of say 8 cars or 7 cars, now it becomes 8 cars.
Yeah.
You wait, you roll it for another couple of months, now it becomes 9 cars. So now you have 9 cars to pay its bills. You pay that debt down, because it's not at great interest rates. I mean, the interest rate, like Horizon, is not great right now.
Yeah.
Like if you're getting a car loan at, the days of car loans at 1-2% are dead. Those are gone right now. So if we can pay that debt down, we'll be out. The cars will be out of debt sooner, and you'll have free cash flow sooner.
Yeah. So
right?
that, but there's a vesting period, right?
Yeah. So if you do it for 6 months and you bail, there's probably nothing for you.
Yeah. So what's the typical vesting period in your head for something like that?
So if let's say we typically keep a car on Turo for 3 years, give or take, right? And we try and get a loan for about 3 years, give or take. It's probably that same amount of vesting. It's probably a third of your vesting every year.
So
give or take. I'm
the
just
vesting is the time period in which it takes the car to be bought down.
No, the vesting is the time period in which your sweat equity matters, right? So if you come and you're a junior partner for 6 months and you're like, I don't like this anymore, I'm out. I'm not giving you anything. The company's not giving you anything. You haven't vested yourself. If you do it for a year and you obligated yourself to 3, but after a year, you're like, nope, I'm out. We'll say after that year, you've vested a third for every year that you're in.
Yeah.
So we would figure out what the value of the cars were, figure out how much debt there still was.
Yeah.
Take anything that's in the black. You get a third of what you would originally have walked away with because you've only vested a third.
So how would you make money on that then?
Because if you're a percentage partner in that, I've got the other percentage. So let's just say
they don't get the full
it's
percentage.
50-50.
Yeah.
Right? We buy $100,000. I'll find $100,000. We'll get $100,000 worth of cars.
Yeah.
For your time, you get half of that when it's up, when it's over,
Okay.
when it's done.
Yeah, that
half
makes
of the
sense.
revenue
Interesting.
once it's paid for itself.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a third, or maybe it's a quarter, or maybe it's 10%. I don't know. I mean, this is all part of the negotiation. Right?
Yeah.
And what kind of cars are we getting? What market are we in? Those things.
That's crazy. I've never heard of somebody doing that. So at what level, like how many cars did you have when you got your first? You only had one. Did you only get to one junior partner?
We had one junior partner, and then again some kind of issues with the partnership where we had different kind of perspectives or takes on what we wanted to do with the company. We had one junior partner, and I think he started out with 7 or 8 cars maybe, as part of his little tranche, if you will.
Yeah. So how long is the junior partner still working with you?
No, for no fault of our own, he was able to do this and dedicate a day or 2 days or whatever it was to us because he worked for himself as well and could kind of move his time around to give a day.
Yeah.
Because he's not, at the end of the day, at the end of every day he works, he doesn't get a paycheck because he's a partner and not an employee. He's not working for the money now. He's working for the profit later. The equity later. So something happened in his regular day job, which again wasn't 9 to 5, and it had to do with government regulation. It didn't have anything to do with Turo. It didn't have anything to do with cars. He was in a different space altogether.
Yeah.
That due to government regulation, made him have to pivot from that job that he was in into a more traditional job, which means he couldn't give us
the time
anymore. I mean, he's still I love the dude. Great dude. We still have his cars. I still have his cars as management. He just isn't doing the partnership thing anymore.
So they went from you getting the loan, you getting him the cars to him being the junior partner, to him still having the cars?
Well, because when he walked away, he had not yet vested.
Yeah.
So let's say he walked away at 11 months. You needed a year to be vested, but because he couldn't make it work for that little period of time, he walked away with nothing. There were some times where in that time period that he had been doing this, that say the loan was $3,000 and say we made $4,500 that month. Well, there were some times where we had distributed some of the profits.
Yeah.
So it's not like he walked away with nothing. He just walked away with not as much as he could have had he stayed through the full vesting process.
Okay. So, but you're not managing his cars, you're managing your cars.
No, this is a guy who I had 4 of his cars.
Yeah.
I still have those cars.
Oh.
And he also came on as a partner, 2 separate things.
So
I was managing his cars.
Okay.
And also, he has an equity stake in these cars that are over here that are completely different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But not anymore. He doesn't have the equity stake.
He doesn't have the equity stake in these cars over here, but he still has the cars over with us in management.
Interesting. I could see how that would be super beneficial for somebody in your position, because if somebody doesn't make it through the vesting process,
I've still got the loans out.
Yeah, absolutely,
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. But then you had, that's so interesting. That's pretty cool. So tell me about the peak. So you got up to 63.
I think it was 63, 64. So that comes and goes, right? We've had management clients bring cars in, take cars away. We've had cars, right now, say the R8 is in the shop right now because it needs a new front bumper. So yeah, it's still there. It's still a car, but it's not a car that you can go look at right now and rent because it's getting a new front bumper.
Yeah.
So, and then there were also things like the Tesla, a couple of Teslas that I had, Well, those were on the platform for a while, but I took those down because we were using them elsewhere. So I think at 63, 64, we didn't have, you couldn't look at my page and see 64 cars because some, recalls or maintenance or all those things that happen.
Yeah. So tell me, what was your operation looking like when you had 63 cars? Was it your junior partner, your partner,
It was
you?
it was three of us. So three of us to run those 63, 64 cars. I'm a big data guy, right? So I've got my first MBA is in program management, so that was a lot of data behind that, and some consulting kind of background, a program management kind of background, how to make an operation like this work. And then my second master's right now that I'm almost done with is in supply chain management. So a lot of logistics, a lot of again, more in the data. So
Yeah.
I love the data. There was a time where we had, I'm sure you remember CarSync, right?
We're just getting into it when
and
they
you
shut it
could
down.
pull all of that stuff. You could pull all of that data, and you just throw it in Excel, and you do some cool guy math to it, and you can come up with some really interesting insights. Now, if you've got one or two cars, it's not really going to matter to you, right? Because the standard deviations, the variance, the variability is just too big for you to make any really good kind of projections going forward. But with the number of cars that we had and looking at some of the insights that CarSync gave us and eventually Turo gave us again, you could kind of build a picture. And that picture is like going back to your question, what's it like to run 63, 64 cars, is where am I in our market cycle here in Phoenix, right? June, July, August, dead, right? So having 63, 64 cars in Phoenix in June, July, and August is really easy because they're all sitting in the garage,
Yeah.
right? And then having 63, 64 cars in March means you've got a really big Thursday, right? Thursday in the Phoenix area, Thursday is the number one car start day.
It's a big day.
Yep. And Monday is the number one big car return day.
Sunday, Monday, yeah.
Yep. So Sunday is a close second. So because I'm a data guy, I know how long it takes me to take a car to the airport, because a vast majority, something between 65 and 68% of all of our trips go out of Sky Harbor.
Wow.
And we had Gateway and we had some custom deliveries, but the data has said that the juice isn't worth the squeeze on those.
Yeah.
Right? For the time commitment to wash a car, take it to Gateway, Uber back, even if you're charging the delivery fee, that's a 90-minute to 110-minute trip.
Well, I'm not even including the Uber.
Yeah.
The Lyft. I mean, you're just between the Ubers and Lyft, that's probably the top fee you could charge. It's probably $50-$60 to get one way, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we go and we do the max $120 delivery to Gateway. But let's say it's a $50 Uber there and back plus tip. That's your delivery fee. So the trip has to be worth the extra hour on each side of the transaction, on the drop off and on the pickup.
Yeah.
Of that hour of your time, so 2 extra hours of your time, it has to be worth for you to even make a trip out to Gateway.
Yeah. I wish they had customization where, because I
They
want.
started.
What?
Did you see it yesterday? The last couple of days?
Well,
Did
you could,
see
because
those
I want
insights?
like minimum 7 days at Mesa Gateway, but I'm fine with
Oh,
like
I
a
see.
2 day
I
at
see what you
Phoenix.
mean on that. Yes, but they did change. Did you see that
The
change? That just
percentages.
came?
Yeah, I did those.
The number of days book ahead for each location. You could make it global for all your cars.
Wait. Say that again. I don't know what this is.
So this just came out, and I actually looked on the app, and I think they took it back. Away. Maybe there was a glitch in it, but you could, how you would always have to go 6-hour, 12-hour book ahead, 3-hour gap between cars, 2-day minimums, and you had to go to each single car to do it. Well, there was a global setting. You could make it happen to all your cars.
Everything should have a global setting.
I know.
Like when you look at somebody like Ryan and Kelly who are here, or like Eric Kwan, 1,200 cars, it would take you a month to go through 1,200 cars.
So
and change
he
all the
doesn't
settings.
make those changes. I guarantee he doesn't
Yeah.
make those changes.
No,
None of the big
course
people
not.
make those changes, because
No.
even now with 20 or 30 cars, I'm not going in and making those changes.
Yeah.
Right? But if I'm, like yesterday I did it. I normally have, let's say I have a 1-day book ahead. It's not, but let's just say I have a 1-day book ahead. But if I'm going down to start working cars, I'm already down there.
Yeah.
Right? The cars don't live at my house, and I live 30, 40 minutes from where the cars are. So I certainly don't want to get up at midnight to go take a car down. I want to have
24
that.
hours?
Oh, I'm just saying. I'm not saying what my number is. I'm just saying, like, for example, 24 hours. But if I'm down there,
Yeah.
why don't I go 1 or 3 hours?
Yeah, or even 30 minutes.
Right. But now they're up until just for that day yesterday until they took it away. Hopefully they give it back to us. While I'm down there, I could go. Well, I'm down here, make it an hour.
That's smart.
Just in case something pops.
Yeah.
I'm already down there doing stuff.
That's smart. What are your hours though? Are you 24/7?
So we changed some stuff. We used to be a 6-hour book ahead, like the 6-hour minimum.
Like, what are your hours for the business?
Right. Well, this is where I'm getting with this.
Okay.
We used to have a 6-hour book ahead.
Wow.
And we were closed from, I think, midnight, maybe 11 p.m. to like 5 a.m. the next day. Those were unavailable hours.
Wow.
Because we knew when we went to bed if we were going to have early morning bookings because of that 6-hour book ahead.
Yeah.
And then as the season started to approach, and it's not like we weren't going to get those trips,
Yeah.
I think we went to 12 hours. But then we took away our unavailability so that I still know enough in advance.
So you don't want to sleep
I can still
for 13
sleep
hours.
Like if I go, when I put my head on the pillow at night, I know if I've got to get up early or not.
Yeah.
But if there's a 5 a.m. trip, I would have known about it
5 p.m.
5 p.m. and I could have gotten it out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So in the season, when I know I'm going to get the bookings, right? This is a slow weekend, right? Because it's the weekend right before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Right. That this weekend is kind of an aberration. It's kind of not really normal for the season, right? The season, you're going to have all your cars booked up on the weekend.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
Those are the trips.
Even the weekdays, most likely. I mean, the true season is pretty crazy, but there's some off.
Sure, but I mean, if you're looking at the numbers, right? 80% of all trips are 5 days or less. So if people are looking at the 6, 7, 10-day trips, you're barking up the wrong tree. That's not where the percentage trips happen.
Yeah.
And something like the number, I don't remember the number exactly, but something like 65 to 70% of all trips start within 5 days of booking. So if you're looking at month ahead bookings, 2 months ahead bookings, well, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's
your pricing's wrong.
That's majority of our stuff is like within a couple of days. Usually it's like
What
the
we
day before,
see
same day.
is Wednesday afternoon into Thursday for the weekend.
Yep. Yeah.
That
we
is,
see
and,
that
and
too.
I've got, I think we've done like 2,500 or 3,000 trips or something like that. Like,
Nice.
I can pull that data, and that's what I did. I went in Excel, and I smashed all the data, and I'm like, oh, the number one trip is this, and I've got like a cool histogram of like how long the trips are, and I asked Turo, I asked my power host rep, and I think they don't look at the data the same way we do. They bin their trips. They're like 0 to 2 days, 3 to 6 days, 7 to 15 days. And like those bins don't mean anything to me as a host. Because if they go, 2% of trips are 15 days or more, I'm like, great, that doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
I want to know how many are 2 days, how many are 3 days, how many are 4 days.
Yeah.
Instead of just putting them all in one bin, 0 to 4.
Yeah.
That doesn't help me.
Yeah, that's something they need to work on. I think.
But they don't have the data for themselves either.
There's no way.
I asked, I said, no,
they have to have it.
It's binned. That's what I'm saying. It's binned this weird way. I said, why can't you show me
Yeah.
3 days?
All right, so let's talk about. So you had 63. You're down to 20.
I think we're in the mid-20s right now.
So tell me about that downsize.
It was kind of a voluntary, involuntary downsize. So I had this partner. He and I had a falling out, and we had some mutually owned assets that we had to get rid of. And part of this is when I told my partner that we were not doing this anymore. He immediately called all of our management clients and said, "Oh, we're giving the cars back." So there was little to no damage control that I could do at this point.
And what was their response? The people that you're co-hosting for?
Well, because I wasn't the one that told it, and I know who my partner is, and I know the subjective view that my partner gave.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those like he threw the grenade in the room. There's no picking the pieces up now.
Yeah.
That it wasn't.
You don't think you could have salvaged and said, miscommunication or something?
I don't think so, because it wasn't just one phone call
Yeah.
from my former partner to these guys. It was like a stream of phone calls.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think so. I would have loved to. I mean, I'm still in the business now. He has exited Turo altogether. He's done. Now we had met, both of us doing Turo, and he and I had very different perspectives on how to run the business and what to do with our time.
Since the beginning, like all the way through.
Oh yeah, I mean there were
partnership?
red flags in the beginning that I was chomping at the bit to grow and expand, that I had overlooked a lot of, like, what now looking back on it were red flags that I should have known earlier. Maybe it
Yeah.
would have been a slower path to growth,
Yeah.
but I think it would have been more solid.
Yeah, and this is good information, because a lot of people getting into the business have partners or they have people that they're wanting to get into business with. So, I mean, this information is good so people don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
But for you, what were the big reasons that maybe the partnership didn't work out?
I think fundamentally it was what we're doing with our time. I wanted to bring a partner on so that I could spend the time growing the business.
Okay.
And like time sharing on doing the small things, the taking cars for oil changes, the washing cars, getting them set out. Take time away from that, or split time doing that, so I could think more strategically, so I could dedicate the time to what types of cars are we adding now? What do we want to move into another market? Like those kinds of bigger picture things, and not just washing cars.
Yeah.
Which is the bread and butter of Turo, is making sure cars get out to guests, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it. But if you're doing that 40 hours a week, it wasn't 40 hours a week, but if you're doing that 40 hours a week, you can't dedicate any time to figuring out any of the back end stuff, any of the stuff on a spreadsheet, any of the stuff in your accounting software, any of those like nuanced things, how to tailor or streamline your messages for guests, right? Because that's another touch point. I want to have as few touch points with my guest as possible. I want to make sure that they have everything that they need, but that they're not calling me 10 times a day, or or when they do call me, I'm not on the phone for 45 minutes, which has happened.
Automated.
Yeah, it's automated, but it's the quality of the messages.
Yeah.
Right? And so that takes time too. I can't just, I'll just put a perfectly tailored message in there, it'll take me 2 seconds. No, it takes time.
Yeah.
To like craft the message,
Yeah.
and get other people's eyes on it, because what makes sense to me may not make sense to someone who's never been to Phoenix before.
Yeah. So you wanted to build the systems. What did your partner
so
want?
my partner wanted the time that he was not doing car stuff, Turo stuff, to be personal time.
Okay.
So he wanted to do the things that he wanted to do and make more of his time available for personal time, whereas I wanted to make more of my time available for more stuff, more Turo things, more growth.
So you wanted to keep the same amount of time you're working, just be working on other things, and he wanted to do less time working and more time personal.
Yep. So if I said,
Interesting.
why, I'm spending, say I've got to go to Jiffy Lube, or say I've got to take one of the things to my mechanic, and we use one mechanic, primarily one mechanic for all of our stuff. So we know, like, and trust him. And if I'm running cars back and forth to get oil changes or to get tires changed or whatever, that's time I can't be doing those other things.
Yeah.
Right? So if I could timeshare, then, that is when, in my mind, 2 people can do the job of 3, right? The synergy of 2 people gets more than what 2 individuals could get done.
Yeah.
Done.
Was that idea what ended the partnership, or were there more things?
Oh, there were a lot more things. Like, I would say 90%, well, I'd probably say 75% of it was personality conflict.
Yeah.
And the other 25% was fundamental, like, business things.
Yeah. So you guys didn't get along?
Oh, no. I mean, in the beginning, like, charming personality, but at the root of it, no, we did not get along.
Okay. Were you? I mean, it sounds like you're more focused on the business, and maybe he wasn't.
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Was that the main clash?
That was one of the clashes, and also how we do it, right? There are times where you can capture efficiencies, that's and I'm certainly not saying that to be a nice way of saying cutting corners, because that's not it.
Yeah.
There are ways that you can capture efficiencies that I would look for, right? If I can nail down, it takes me 45 minutes every time I do this, standardization, because I do it the same way every time, instead of doing it very, very different ways. And now I go from maybe sometimes I'll get a car out in 20 minutes and sometimes I'll get a car out in an hour because of the variation in how I do things. If you standardize it and they're almost always say 45 minutes, well, now I know I can bake that into my time, and I can bake that into when a car gets ready to go out on a trip, how early I need to be there, how early the car needs to be prepped, all those things. So that's where I'm looking. And I was trying to build like a standard operating procedure. Like, these are the procedures that we do every time, no matter what, even sometimes when it's a little bit less convenient. Mm-hmm. And that went out the window. My partner was not really interested in that. It was instead of having one operating agreement with a standard operating agreement for every single one of our management clients, the people who bring us their cars and we manage them for, everyone's got a different deal. And that doesn't, and I'm like, even though it may not be as convenient sometimes to do that.
What do you mean everybody has a different deal?
Well, this guy came with his lockbox. This guy came with his tracker. This guy wants to use his wash plan. Like, the little things.
And you're saying
that
you
instead of
in,
having 20 management clients with 20 different things that now I've got to keep track of, now I've got to keep track of, or now my partner's got to keep track of.
Okay.
Why don't we do it, let's do it all the same.
Yeah.
And that was not like that. It's like I had something growing out of my forehead when I made mention of that.
Yeah, but that's a good lesson for people wanting to do co-hosting, because it's true. If you have a lot of different systems, and let's say an example is maybe you have to train somebody. Mm-hmm. If you have to train somebody 35 things instead of just 10 things, there's a big difference. There's a big difference. And if there's not a set system on how you do things when new people come in, it's just fly by the, however the saying is, fly by the seat of your pants, mm-hmm. whatever. I mean,
and that's exactly what it was. So I would show our the junior partner who came in after my 50% partner came, after we were together, we brought in that junior partner.
Yeah.
And I would do a day with the junior partner on what the expectation is of how we wash the cars, what we look for, where are the common areas that things get dirty or scuffed or whatever, how we pay attention to certain parts. And then when he has another shadowing day with my partner, it would be sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And that leads to more chaos.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So if people are trying to bring on management clients, it's not just as easy as a handshake and you give you the keys and you go. Yeah. I mean, the same thing with as you start to grow or as you start to bring on a partner, the upfront expense, don't skimp there. Mm-hmm. Get an operating agreement. Make sure it gets run by a lawyer. Like, figure out what your partnership percentages look like. Are you going to form a new LLC? All of those things cost money in the beginning. And if you've only got 2, 3, 4 cars and you're thinking, is this going to be the thing for me? You're going to look at it and go, wow, I don't really want to pay $4.50 an hour for a lawyer to look at this thing. I'll be good. Nope. Yeah. It's expensive in the beginning, but it will make everything else run a lot smoother.
Yeah, well, you're gonna pay a price somewhere, mm-hmm. either in the beginning or somewhere in the end, and in the end could hurt a lot more.
Sure.
Okay, so let's say you were to get into another partnership. Mm-hmm. What would you be looking for in a partner for it to be successful?
I think so. I don't want a robot, and I don't want a copy of me either. Okay. I don't want someone that I just have to drive around, and I don't want someone who thinks exactly the same as I do. Okay. I want enough of a difference in thought process where maybe if it's a thing that I'm not thinking of, maybe they're thinking of it, and we can build on that.
Okay.
But I also want someone who has a background, like has a good enough handle on bookkeeping, a good enough handle on the economics of the situation, not just someone who can wash cars real well.
Yeah.
I don't want that at all.
So somebody that has the skills that maybe you're not focusing on, or
no, I want someone who, if I say the words balance sheet or a statement of cash flows or a ledger, I don't want their eyes to glaze over. I want them to go, oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or if they don't, I want them to ask questions. In this partnership that I previously had, this partnership that just dissolved, I don't think, I think I can probably count on two hands how many times he ended he ended a sentence with a question mark, right? He was always telling me how things were
Yeah.
and not ever asking, well, why are we doing it that way? And what does that mean? Or,
Yeah.
nope. So I want someone inquisitive and looking to grow, not someone who's kind of, they already know the answer.
Yeah.
That's not who I want at all.
Yeah. So, little shift, but what are your plans? So, 20-something cars. What are your plans to grow? Are you going to keep growing? Are you going to
I
take
would
a
like
pause?
to, I've talked to, let me back up. Every time I go to the East Economy parking lot and I see someone with a camera, I immediately go up to them. I immediately go up to them.
Oh, like taking photos of the car.
If they're taking a picture of a car, the only reason you're doing that in the East Economy parking lot at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport is because you're either a Turo guest or a Turo host. Mm-hmm. So, and if I see two cars, if I see someone get out of a car and go take pictures of a car, they're a host. And I make sure I get their phone number and send them a text message.
Interesting.
I can't tell you how many times I've had coffee with people.
In hopes for what?
Anything, right? So it could be just as much as sharing information, or it could be, you know, now we share an office, or we work out of the same office, or, you know, we can call each other, hey, I'm going to be gone these days. Would you mind doing this? Or, you know,
Interesting.
anything.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not closed-minded with what is this, like, I need a certain thing. I'm open to all things, right? I really am. And I've probably had coffee with a dozen people I've met at Sky
Damn,
Harbor.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I
too?
always introduce them to the same Facebook group that we're a part of. Hey, are you a part of that group? You know, Ryan and Kelly? Like,
Yeah.
you know, just to try to, now ultimately at the end of the day, we are all competitors, right?
Yeah.
There are a finite number of travelers that come here, and it seems like more and more cars with the same amount of travelers. So we are competitors, but that doesn't mean we can't share information like the churn of brand new people who get new cars, who put them on the platform and use auto pricing and one-day minimums, and then after a couple of trips they get burnt out, or they realize that they've got a lot of damage to their car because the people who rent at the, you know, I'm talking in generalities here, the people who rent at the lowest prices for the smallest number of days disproportionately have the largest number of things go wrong with them.
Yeah.
Right? So even just a little bit of, I wouldn't even call it coaching, but just like, hey, maybe one-day minimums aren't a good idea. And here's why, and here's the experience that I've had, and hopefully you don't have these experiences by continuing down this path.
I like that. A lot of people are so competitive and they don't want to talk to other hosts. They're like on their own island, they're in their own area, and they're not open to ideas. But I always like when hosts can get together and just talk about things because, I mean, every time I get around a host, I'm learning something. And every little thing can make such a big difference. I mean, could be a couple $100 times 20 cars, 50 cars, 100 cars. I mean, it's crazy how much things can change.
Yeah, and it's not so much data sharing like, oh, I've got a 2020 Subaru Forester that I let go for $45 a day, and you're like, I've got a 2022 Subaru Forester, I'll make it go for $44 a day. Like, it's not like, I don't want to have that type of conversation where I'm not trying to undercut someone.
Yeah.
But I am also of the mind where, you know I've seen where the Turo data like skews and what kind of cars, you know, especially when we had access to CarSync, right? When there was big data that we could see. Well, the market's flooded with minivans. Would I recommend you getting a minivan? No, probably not, right? Or the market doesn't have any whatever car, insert car here. Maybe that's a place to get into. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm going to go do it. Maybe my resources are tied up. Maybe I'm not in a place where I can take on more cars or whatever. But I don't know. I think it's probably this could be an opportunity if you're in that position where you've got say a line of credit or some car loans available to you or whatever. Maybe that's what you do.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's what I've seen. I don't have that car anymore.
Yeah.
But when I did have that car, this is what I saw. I can give you that. You know, I'm happy to share that information.
Yeah. That's a great mindset. So speaking of line of credit, do you buy all your cars with lines of credits?
So the answer to that question is no. We've done everything. So I've bought cars cash. I've done seller financing even. Like someone would give me the car and like over the next 6 months, I'll pay you say I'll pay you $3,000 a month for the next 6 months. Now I'm cash flow negative on that car,
Yeah.
but it at least it doesn't make me take out a big chunk of money to pay for a car if I can get seller financing, even if it's for just a couple of months.
Wow.
I've done traditional like bank lending. I've done like private financing and anything in between. And I've done like I guess the equivalent of like rent to own too. So hey, I get this car and for a year or whatever, I'll pay you over the course of a year, or I'll give you all the revenues, or like there are any number of ways to skin this cat. Going back to the paperwork side, make sure it's all documented, make sure it's all been looked at by some professional eyes, especially if you're going to do things like seller financing, right? Who's going to hold the title, who's in charge of registration, who's going to insure it,
Yeah.
all of those things. You can do anything you want. You just have to make sure that everyone agrees to it and that you're bound to it in some way.
So out of all those ways that you've bought in cars, what do you say is your favorite?
My favorite is probably, I don't know. I think seller financing is really nice. It's upside downside, right? Like there's no interest rate involved, but it's an agreed upon price, and you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more to do that. Yeah. So let's say I sell you a car, like I'm asking 15 for a car.
Yeah.
You want to do seller financing? Okay, well let's make it 16 then, and we'll do seller financing. So you can back it out to figure out what the interest rate is.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right, but it's not actually an interest rate. There's no APR involved unless you back it out to the extra 1 on 15 that you're paying over 6 months.
Yeah.
Right?
So how do you find deals like that? Like how would you find a seller financing deal?
Some of it, like I said, is every time I see someone at the East Economy parking lot, I talk to people. You never know how many people. We picked up 3 cars, guys that they had 3 cars. They were underwater on them, and we said, hey, why don't we just take over your car payments and we'll do it.
That's smart.
Yeah, they're
Hosts.
Other hosts. Yeah, they were like they didn't do, like, I hate saying like do your research. They just bought some newer cars and thought they could go with it.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right. People, they don't do research. They just jump into it.
Nope. And I think that's the biggest, that takes a lot of effort. Maybe not time, maybe not skill, but definitely effort to figure out, because there are 3 things that you will never get back on a car: interest, insurance, depreciation. Everything else you'll get back on the car, and maintenance, right? You have to figure out your maintenance cost. But those 3 things every month are what you lose. So on some cars, I can be cash flow negative. I can pay for that car every month as long as that car makes more than what I'm paying in interest, what I'm paying in insurance, and what I'm paying in depreciation. I've got to figure out what the depreciation is. That's something that I have to do market research on. What's this car going for in 3 years from now? What's the value of the car? How much am I going to lose in those 3 years that I've got the car? I've got to make sure I make at least that. Yeah. And then I look at what are the going rates given whatever the utilization is. Like, again, forecasting, I've got to assume a certain amount of utilization. Am I going to assume 100% utilization? No. I'm probably going to assume 3-day weekends during the season and maybe 2 weekends a month not in the season. That's I'm just roughing it here. But I can't go in and go, oh, I'm going to make money every month, because there are going to be months that you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, in Phoenix anyway, it's very much, especially if you've got loan payments to make, feast or famine, right? In February, March, and April is where you should be accumulating the savings so that in June, July, and August, when those cars are not out, you can still pay for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you do anything to offset the bad seasons?
No. Nope. There are some things that I won't do to let a car go out. I'm not going to let a car go out for $20 a day. Yeah. I'm not going to let the R8 go out for $49 a day. It's not going to happen, right? The cost, it depreciates almost $1 a mile.
$1 a mile?
Give or take.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, it does. So you have to do, that's the calculation you need to make, is what is the revenue per mile?
Yeah.
Assuming, now depending on how much data you can bring back or bring forward, I've got 3 years of data and 3,000 data points.
Yeah.
So I can look and say, on average, given a 200-mile limit, right, guests drive 122 miles a day. for each day that it's rented. And I make X dollars on average a day for every dollar that it's rented. So, or for every day that it's rented. So I figure out my dollar per mile that I get paid for this car.
So we figure out too. I like that number.
Yep. Now, if you, all that extra miles, when you hit, oh, wow, I'm going to get paid, they drove a whole bunch of extra miles. That sucks, pardon my French, because you get paid on the rate of 200 miles a day.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get a couple hundred extra bucks for extra miles, but you're getting that many more miles a day. You're maxing out you're getting the minimum dollar per mile if they go extra miles.
It's never worth it for extra miles.
It's never worth it.
Unless it's at an insanely high price that typically won't get. Then of course, like extra miles are.
Sure, yeah, like if you've got a C8 Vet or you got an R8 or you got a Lamborghini or you got something where it's like $4 a mile or $3 a mile or whatever, cool, extra miles, great. Yeah. But if you've got a Toyota Camry or a Toyota Corolla
and you're making 19 to 25
and you're
cents.
making, and they're like, wow, you get 12 cents a mile, awesome. Because not only can you factor in how much you make per mile, it's not how much you make per month or per day, it's how much you make per mile.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is a direct indication
for depreciation
of wear and tear, depreciation, brakes, oil changes, tires, all of that factor, right? If I change my tires every 30,000 miles and it costs me $1,000, now I know how much per mile it costs me that I've got to set aside.
That's a good way to look
for
at
maintenance.
it.
Like that's how. So I'm in aviation too. Like I was in the Navy for a long time and flew F-18s, and now I fly helicopters.
Wow.
Like for fun, part time on the side.
Cool.
That's how all of aviation happens, because flying a helicopter or an airplane just costs the fuel and oil you put into it. But every year or every couple thousand hours, now you've got to put a $50,000, $75,000 engine in there. I don't want to write a check for 75 grand out of nowhere. So every hour that I fly, I put X amount of dollars per hour I fly into a bank account. So when it comes time to get that new motor, I don't have to write a check for anything that's not already in the bank. Right?
That's a great way to look at it.
That's the way that I look at it with cars. Right? I know that it costs me, I'm just throwing a number out there, I don't know what the number is, 20 cents a mile to run this car. Number one, I'm never going to have a rate that gets me less than 20 cents a mile. Because then even if I'm getting the car out and I'm making the paycheck looks good that month, I'm losing money.
Wow, that's smart.
By sending that car out, and I will not do that, right?
Yeah.
That's economics, that's like economics 101.
Yeah.
There are two rules in business. Number one, make money. Number two, don't lose money. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to lose money by sending a car out there at a rate below my threshold.
Yeah. So you're just on Turo?
I'm only on Turo.
Okay.
Yep.
No private or anything? Have you looked into it?
Nope.
Is there a reason?
Time, effort, energy, right? I have marketing already taken care of. Turo does all that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You're talking about the initial, because all the time is the initial, like the research.
Well, now I've got to run another platform. Now I've got to do, marketing there. How am I going to get my cars advertised in other places? Like that is more effort now that it's just me again that I'm willing to put in if Turo is not my limiting factor.
Yeah.
Turo is not my limiting factor. My limiting factor is man hours and the number of cars I have.
Yeah. How do you feel about Turo's future?
It depends. I mean, I think they were a great disruptor in the right time. Now, Turo's been around for a long time, but it didn't, relatively a long time, but it didn't come to prominence until COVID.
Yeah.
Right? Where people started making the switch because you couldn't get rental cars other places.
Yeah.
So I think there are a lot of goods and a lot of others when it comes to Turo too. And some of the conversations that I had, I think Turo is in the business of making money. Mm-hmm. Right? It is in the business of making money on the backs of the hosts, right? We're the ones that provide the service. We're the ones that do the work, and you have guests that come and purchase said service, right? So if you get into a squabble and you get something raised to executive support and it's a he said, she, it's a host said, guest said, well, who pays the bills? The guests do. If the guests don't come back to Turo, or if the guests tell all their friends don't ever use Turo, then it doesn't really matter. So I do see the shift, and I think a lot of people see the shift of Turo becoming more guest-centric, more guest-friendly.
Yeah.
And I don't like that, right? Because the terms of service are what we are bound to, if you will. But if Turo is going to deviate from terms of service in the guest's favor, contrary to what's written on the paper, and we've got no recourse, right? We can go away, we can pull our cars from Turo, but Turo doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right? It's just me, like I'm just a person.
Yeah.
Right? They've got enough people who are going to fill that void of my whatever. You say I'm at 100 cars. I'm just a drop in a bucket.
Yeah.
Right.
So what do you think about Turo in like 10, 20 years? I mean, do you think they're still going to be around? Do you think they're going to be
It's innovate or die,
Yeah.
right? If you look at Walmart, Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, who went out of business a couple of years ago, Borders, right? Innovate or die. If you think you're going to do the same thing and be successful forever, you're wrong. I mean, think about 3M, right? That big industrial company. They had a whole bunch of innovation back in the day, like Teflon. I'm pretty sure that's a 3M product, right? Scotch tape, Post-it notes, all 3M. But what are they doing now, right? They're sitting back because they're not innovating, right? Innovate or die is the way of capitalism. So
Yeah.
do I think Turo's going to survive? Would Turo survive? I don't know. Probably. It depends on how they're going to innovate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they're going to do this same thing, right? They were the disruptors. The disruptors become the established, and then the established get killed off by new disruptors.
Yeah.
So if they can't innovate or won't innovate, then someone else will step in.
Yeah. So if Turo were to not innovate, let's say they left the market or something, would you be worried? I mean, what would you do?
Oh, I've got other skill sets where this is like, I could just liquidate the cars and go do something else with my life.
Okay.
I mean, that's easy enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
I specifically don't want to work a 9 to 5 or, even if it's a consulting job doing like contract work, like I like this because it gives me the freedom to do what I want to do. Could I make more money elsewhere? Absolutely. Could I have more stability elsewhere? Absolutely. Do I get to would I be able to drive cool cars when I wanted to? No. Right? I'm a car guy. I love cars, right?
Yeah.
That's what kind of drove me into this, that I get to drive a bunch of cool cars when they're not on trips if that's what I feel like that day.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. But I've got I have other things to fall back on.
Okay.
If Turo vanishes tomorrow, cool. Right? I do some stuff in the crypto space and I'm still in aviation, so I can load up more there if that's what's required.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what are your plans? Are you gonna keep growing?
I hope to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you
Barring
planning-
any unforeseen circumstances, right?
Yeah.
I'd like to be. So what are we at the end of 2023? I think I could probably at least double again so we were at 63, down to, I had parted ways with my partner, so we went down a number of cars because a lot of those management cars he kind of made go away, which I wasn't super happy with.
Yeah.
But I can probably on my own double again by the end of the next year, and then
By the end of 24?
By the end of 24, I can double
Okay.
again organically, not
Yeah.
even bringing on partners. And if I'm able to bring on a partner and outside financing again, I could be 100 cars by the end of next year. But but the dominoes would have to be lined up just right.
Yeah.
Right. I'd have to
So-
find the right partner. I'd
Yeah.
have to find the right space. I'd have to things would need to line up.
So
But I
as
think
of-
I can double organically without any.
So that's your
outside.
plan, double organically
Probably,
ish.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and change the lineup of cars too. Going from Turo skews very economy car just as a whole.
Yeah.
To move out of the economy car where it's not a race to the bottom in pricing.
Especially in the summer.
Especially in the summertime, right? I still want to have the unique and interesting cars that still there's mass appeal to, there's market appeal to it, that I can be in a market. If I look on Turo and see what's renting right now, maybe there are only 10 or 15 of them instead of 200 of them, right? That's probably where I want to be.
Okay. Okay. That's definitely a good place to be. So for this year, what is your revenue set? What are you going to generate this year?
So I think we'll be over, if I factor in the cars that the stuff we've already done, I think we're over 450 for the year.
Okay.
But now I took a large hit with not having as many cars now for these last couple of months.
Yeah.
So we'll probably do maybe another 25 or 30 this year,
Okay.
give or take.
So just under $500,000. And what percentage of that is net from?
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I mean, that includes management stuff. I could tell you if I go pull up a QuickBooks report or whatever,
Yeah.
but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head because I also am in a place where I don't really take any revenue from the company. I use it to continue to buy cars.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, which is
So I
the
can't
best way to
like
do
I
it.
don't take home 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 grand a month because I try not to take anything
You don't
so
take
that I
anything?
can keep rolling in the business.
Smart.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to do it.
So the longer that I can wait in the beginning, it's like saving for retirement, right?
Yeah.
If the longer you can wait before you touch it, the more you'll have at the end.
Yeah.
So if I can keep rolling profits into the cars that I want, when it comes time for me to want to try and draw an income stream, there's more base to pull from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but if you were to take a guess, like 480,000, would you say you've netted more or less than 100,000?
More.
More. Mm-hmm. More or less than like 200,000.
Probably maybe more. So with the management stuff was on a percentage basis. It was a revenue share. So
Okay.
I would have to look and back out all of what I've paid out
Okay.
to other people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay. What's your
like,
split with co-hosts?
It depends, right? So it depends on the style of car. It depends on what I think the car can do, right? So if I think the car is like a 1992 Toyota Yaris or whatever, that maybe is going to do $300-400 a month, I'm going to have to charge a larger percentage
Yeah.
because it's got to be worth my time to do.
Interesting. What's your maximum percentage you charge for a car?
I think we've taken 40% at one point.
Okay, that's not. I was expecting a lot higher of a number.
Well, it's 40% plus any expenses, right? So we would, if it's got to get new tires put on it, I'll put new tires on it. I'm not going to charge it will come out of the owner's revenue, but I'm not going to take money from the owner. So I may have to float tires for a month or
Wow.
whatever. I mean, but that's part of my deal. If I want to win, just like I want the owner of the car to win.
Yeah, have you ever ran into a situation where you floated them money and then they just wanted to pull their car out?
No, I haven't. The longest I've ever had to float anything was, I think we floated maybe $1,500 for like a week into a month.
You have that in your contract, like they can't pull their car out unless
They've got to give us notice and have all of those debts paid.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that's one thing I'd be worried about.
Now they can put it on pause, like, hey, I want to take my Jeep out into the mountains for the week when I'm in town. Okay, we'll block it. You go take it, right? But you've got to give us, 30, 45 days notice or whatever we have in our agreement.
Yeah, yeah.
That you're going to pull the car.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Are you planning on getting more co-hosting, or you just? I mean, you said organically.
Yeah, I think that organically is me finding. Now, I don't advertise, hey, I do management, come give me your car, but I'm
Yeah.
part of a couple of networking groups, and I always meet with every time I see someone at Sky Harbor, I always talk to them, and sometimes there's an opportunity, like the people who had 3 cars who weren't doing it anymore, I took those cars on.
Smart.
So that's what I mean by organic, where I'm not just in the forums going, hey, I do co-hosting, hey, I do co-hosting. That's not, I like the money, but I don't need the business.
Yeah.
And then going back to the pricing of the cars, if you've got a great car that does a bunch of money every month, maybe the percentage will come down to 25 or 30%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What would you say is good advice for people looking to either get in the business or they're just kind of starting out?
If you're doing it by yourself, like if you're not co-hosting, if you're just, I want to get a car and I want to put it on Turo, is really figuring out the total cost of ownership, right? Total cost of ownership, and assuming that you're going to have the car for 2 or 3 years on Turo. You can have it for
Loan,
longer.
depreciation, maintenance.
All those things. Interest, insurance, and depreciation are the things that every month go away. And then, so those are fixed costs. The variable costs are cost per mile, which is oil changes, tires,
the
things like
maintenance,
that.
yeah.
Yep. And then there is a lot more groundwork than just buying a car.
Yeah.
Right? It's looking not only at the market, like Turo, like surfing Turo as a guest to see what cars are available and what price points are available. Because if you say, hey, I'm going to get a Tesla and I'm going to charge $150 a day, you're never going to get rentals, because if you look at Turo in the Phoenix area and you see what Teslas are going for, they're not $150 a day.
Yeah.
Right? The market is very well saturated with Teslas, so price has to come down.
Yeah, I see that a lot. People just say, "I want this much, and I think I can get it for this many days."
Cool,
And
good for you.
They
Like,
make up
that's
these
not-
numbers.
So another problem that I had with my former partner is whatever his gut told him was the truth. You remember Stephen Colbert, where he had like the truthiness came from his gut? That was my partner. If he believed it to be true, it was true no matter what the data said.
That's tough.
And if you don't know what Microsoft or whatever other brand Excel is, or whatever spreadsheet program is, if you don't know how to do just very simple calculations in it, you don't need to be on Turo. It's that simple. It's not just as easy.
I'd say most people don't do any of this stuff.
And you should.
Oh,
right? 'Cause
100%,
it's business
100%.
101, right? You need to be able to figure out how. Yeah, you're making $300, $400, $500, $800 a month, but what goes out the back end?
Yeah.
What happens when you go to turn around and sell the car and now you're underwater $6,000? Did you make $6,000 while you had the car? Oh, you only made $4,000? Okay, so your whole business endeavor is you losing $2,000. Congratulations.
I know. I hear about that all day. I mean, but it all goes down to the research.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. If you do the right research, if you in the research, if you do the right things with the research,
Yep.
you'll be fine.
And by the right research, I think it is figuring out your total cost of ownership in the car. Mm-hmm. That's an easy number to figure out. Yeah. You have to make a couple of assumptions, but that's an easy number to figure out. The one that's not as easy to figure out is what will the car do revenue for an entire year?
Yeah.
That takes, what's the seasonal data, right? Phoenix is very seasonal, right? Mm-hmm. Very snowbird forward, if you will, right? And a lot of people travel. So our season, as I'm sure you've seen as a host yourself, starting in the beginning of the year, after Christmas, no one travels until about the third week of January because everyone has just done all their travel for the year and corporate money hasn't come back yet. So really business starts to pick up the third week of January, give or take. Mm-hmm. From there, third week of January. February, upswing. March, biggest month. April, a little bit of a downswing. May is the last of the season. And then June, July, August, dead. Okay, September comes around. What happens in September? Kids start going back to school. Sports start coming back in. So you'll have pockets of a little bit of travel in September. Then in October, you'll have more sports. You'll have all the sports, I think, in October, right? Because you have like World Series, you have like end of baseball, beginning of football. I think maybe there's some basketball tied in there too. I'm not a big sports guy, right?
Yeah.
And then you have a little bit of a down period, like right now we're the week before Thanksgiving, so nothing's going on the week before Thanksgiving because everyone's going to travel for Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
So Thanksgiving's going to be big, but then no one travels between Thanksgiving and Christmas because they either just traveled for Thanksgiving or they're waiting to travel for Christmas. So in those couple of weeks, pretty dead. Then everyone travels for Christmas, and then there's that down period again where people just got over spending all the money for the year, right? So it's very cyclical. If you don't know that about Phoenix, and I just gave away some hints and tips about what Phoenix looks like, if you don't know your market, say you're in LA, right? LA's got a season, but it's the opposite season as Phoenix, right? If you watch some of the people who are out in LA who have YouTube stuff, like they'll tell you about their season. They're a lot less specific about it, but you see that there's a season too that is different than us. Yeah. So if you're doing the market research, figure out your market, not just Turo, not just everyone, but what does Phoenix look like, or what does Denver look like, or what does Vegas look like, right? Vegas, I'm sure, is a different animal because you have a lot of money out there. You have a lot of people who want to come in for maybe some higher end stuff, right? It's a very different market.
Yeah.
So I can't talk at all about the Vegas market or the LA market or Denver or wherever. I can talk about Phoenix because I know Phoenix. I'll also pull data. I started pulling data from the government, right? Government revenue per seat mile airlines. That matters because most of my trips are travelers. So I want to know airfare. If airfare goes up, supply and demand, right? Airfare goes up must mean there's a lot of demand for it.
Airfare for people coming to Phoenix.
Uh-huh.
You can see that data?
Yeah, the government has it. The government shows that data.
Where?
Really? I'll get you the links. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The government shows all kinds of travel data. All the way up through, I think they're like a year behind or something like that, but you can see seasonality and you can see trends over years and you can see rental car rates. The government because the government takes all of that data. You know, when you fill your NIAC code when you create a business and what kind of company are you and you do your taxes, all of that data goes to Uncle Sam. Now it's not like they don't know who you are, they don't know who I am, but they know in rental car companies, which is a specific NIAC,
Yeah.
they know this number and they can show that number over time.
Interesting.
So you can see big macro trends too. Are we starting to travel? Or is travel tapering off? Well, that matters because I'm directly tied to travelers.
That's good. I mean, pretty much just do your research. That's it. And you take it pretty far. You take it a lot farther than we do. We do some of the stuff that you do, but I mean, there's no such thing as too much research. Too much research. I mean, the more you do, I think the better off you're going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to be. There's a sweet spot, right? If I'm priced too high, I'm not going to get trips, and if I'm priced too low, I'm going to get trips too early, right? So I want to look at my forecasting and see what the project demand, so that I'm not leaving, even if it's $1 or $2 or $3 per day per car times 60 cars. I'm losing a couple $100 a day potentially.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
That does make, because that is a direct hit to the bottom line. Same thing with things like parking and maintenance and stuff like that, right? If you figure out how much you pay Sky Harbor every month and figure out ways to mitigate that.
We make our guests pay, but I know what you mean.
Well, I mean, what about when you pick it up?
Yeah, we make our guests pay for it.
Both sides? Okay, tell me how to do that, because so we don't. We assume $14 or $16 every trip, right? Now then
We put it in our descriptions and stuff.
that they'll be
And the opening
billed
message.
afterwards. Okay, that's something that I will definitely look into.
But we do free delivery
Okay, we
to
don't.
Sky Harbor. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, right?
Yeah.
So there are a number of ways. There are a number of ways to skin that cat, because Turo, the way Turo as a guest, and every time I go travel, I'm a guest. I'm a Turo guest too. Every time I go travel. Now I have some nicer cars as a host, but when I go travel, I get the absolute cheapest thing I can, 100%, right? Because I'm going for business. My business is Turo. Every dollar I spend as a partnership LLC or sole proprietor LLC, that's my dollar.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not
And
working for a
that's-
big company.
And that's traveler's mindset for the most part. Like,
Well,
when
if you've got a travel department, if you've got people who book your travel for you, that's not their mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. But for people that are booking their own travel, they're looking for usually the cheapest cars, and those are the ones that get booked first, and then the more expensive, and then the more expensive.
Yeah. Well, I want people, when people come here, say I've got a bunch of convertibles, I want people who don't book based on, who don't search with sort by price. I want people who click convertible.
Yeah.
And then I want to have a good looking picture of a good looking car, because someone will pay the extra couple of dollars for that kind of car.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a different type of traveler. Same thing with like the big SUVs. It's a different type of traveler. If I've got a new Suburban or a new Escalade, I'm going to charge a price commensurate with the type of people that I think are going to come in, or that I've seen come in to rent those cars.
Yeah.
People going golfing, families, big ski weekend, whatever. Like that's how I'm gonna price my car.
Yeah, absolutely. And to figure out the pricing, do your research, for sure. Is there any social medias or anything that you want to tag or have us shout out?
Nope. I mean, so if I tell you who I am on Turo, you're going to go to Turo and you're going to book from someone else. I never advertise my own little stuff on Turo.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go look and you're going to see all of the other cars that maybe fit your needs better. You're going to go book with someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Turo is a great platform, but I don't need to advertise myself on Turo. Now, if you want to come fly with me, or if you want to come drive race cars with me, you can look me up at 519racing.com. Or I'm sure we can get with you, and you can get with me if you want to go flying.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds sweet. What about for co-hosting? Is there a way people can reach out if they wanted to co-host with you?
Yeah, so I'm Alex, right? Alex at 519 Racing, and you can reach out and we can talk co-hosting.
Okay.
Or even if you just want to, if you're in the Phoenix area, either a guest or a host, and you're here, look me up. We'll go get coffee.
Yeah, that sounds great. Definitely something that you don't hear from other hosts. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I think is great information for everybody watching. So, for everybody watching, thanks for staying to the end, and hope to see you in the next video.